All right, let's go ahead and get started here. Call this meeting to order. If we could stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Recording attendance is pretty easy for these meetings. There's only 5 of us, plus John, our liaison, and we're all here. So I will just note that. Everybody has the agenda.
Yes.
I'll take a motion to approve the agenda or change it if anybody has.
Read that. What's a move? Move.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, then this is the agenda we'll go with. First up is I want to give everyone a chance to relay their lessons learned or suggestions that we should include in our recommendations to the board. As part of the packet, I sent out what is kind of a running list of notes. It's not grammatically correct, I'm sure. They're just for stream of consciousness. But those were the ones that I noted as we were going through. I don't know if you had a chance to look at them or not.
I have a question to begin with.
Sure,
Do we have a report from the vendor, final report?
we do. We do.
Has that been shared with us? 'Cause I don't have it.
No, it's going as appendices to the report we'll give to the board, which I did plan to socialize with everyone before we do it. But part of that report is these lessons learned and recommendations. But if you want to see it raw, I'll be more than happy to share it.
I wouldn't mind getting an advance
Yeah,
view of what MK sent you.
Okay. Essentially what NK sent me, I actually, John, this is an interesting question for you. I have, I think, 6 boxes of records that were shipped to my home. And I'm not sure, being new to this, where we keep them, what we do. So perhaps sometime we can get together, or I can ask Linda.
Yeah, I the first person I was probably going to go to is Linda to see where they are storing.
Okay.
I don't know if it's if they keep it over the police station or not. So
No, I'll check with her before I
yeah,
leave.
and yeah,
Yes.
if there's any issue, I'll dig and find out
She
exactly
has
where they.
referred in
where
the
they put 'em.
past to the file cabinet, but this is probably, appears to me more than just a single file cabinet. So,
Yeah.
so we may be
Gotcha.
exploring that question to make sure that we keep all the records that we're obliged to.
You don't want to keep them at your house?
No.
Flowers and stuff.
Sooner or later, the wife's going to make us clean out that garage,
That's
and
right.
then they got to go.
Yeah.
But NK did send, of course, their invoice and just, it's basically, I think about 5 reports.
Yeah, it'd be good to see those, because those might spawn other lessons learned. I guess,
Okay.
if we look at those.
Yeah,
I think he talked about having some interesting statistics.
well, actually, let's see, no, I didn't include that. But I will.
No rush, just
So,
when
Let me
the
just
spirit moves you.
I send out my comments by email.
okay.
They weren't attached.
They weren't attached
no.
and nobody told me.
Actually-
I did respond and say there's no
Oh,
attachments.
sorry.
All right.
There, now you got an attachment.
Of course, I can't read it, but that's okay.
Hey, I'm good at doing stuff. I'm just not good at email.
I'm probably going to have a recommendation to start this that's probably controversial, and that is that we go back to paper ballots.
Okay.
And I think there is a sentiment in the community for doing that. And I think there is a positive in terms of the finances associated with it. I have a copy of what was on Joe's forum when he broached that. And interestingly, of course, I can't read it to you, but I will.
I read it.
No, I was going to
I
say,
have read it.
I will let you read the highlighted portions to the rest of the group if you like.
If that's what
because
you'd like.
I don't have my.
I'll be happy to read it for you. No trouble. Highlighted portions. Okay. The first use of internet voting took place when Colette Horn was OPA president during the 22 election. resulting in as many as 200 or more valid ballots not counted in an election where about 13 votes decided a board seat. Under the presidency of Doug Parks, the 2023 election would not include internet voting. On January 19, 2023, Piatti wrote, the election committee desires to not just temporarily suspend online voting, but to discontinue online voting altogether. The results of online voting cannot be audited. Internet voting requires OPA to trust totally in any company handling internet voting. That's not the case with paper ballots that can be tabulated by scanning or secured in the admin building. Election committee and/or the board ignored the recommendation. Nothing new, absolutely nothing regarding the valid concerns. Well, that's an editorial.
Yep.
I strike that. In any election with very close results, or if a candidate challenges results, any recount could only be done with paper ballots. There's a highlight here that says it added nearly $7,000 to the cost of the election, which is not true, strictly speaking, but we can discuss. MK Elections manager commented that they could do the counting right here in Ocean Pines. The OPA board of directors should consider eliminating internet voting, bring the paper ballot contracted counting operation back to an OPA facility where election committee members can supervise the process as they are charged to do. Return the OPA election process to the KISS principle, allow only paper ballots, have a qualified contractor count the return ballots in an OPA facility, allowing association members to observe. This would permit a full recount or verification of every ballot cast in the event of a close vote or election result challenge as allowed in governing documents. Okay, comments?
I watched the first meeting of that election committee, and everybody knows my history with that committee and my
No, I don't.
well, some people know my history with that committee and my objections to that committee. And it was in that meeting that one of the members who supposedly was an IT expert, gave the reason for eliminating the electronic voting. What if somebody trips over the cord for the internet in the office? And it was Piatti on his own that, Piatti might have wanted to eliminate and say eliminate for a purpose. If the chairman of a committee is going to run a committee and then resign, then leave, and we're going to still be bound by what he said, ran by a committee.
Well, just to be clear, we're not bound by anything. And what I was reading,
I'm responding to Joe.
I understand, and we're just reading from
Right.
one guy's opinion.
Yeah, that's so.
Okay.
So what Piatti thought is irrelevant because his whole committee was a sham, and the reason for eliminating internet voting is a sham. But let's go back to 2022.
Okay, let me,
What-
as chairman of the committee, let's keep our incendiary words to a minimum.
I want to go back to 2022. The problem was not the electronic voting. The problem was the paper ballots. The problem was the paper ballots were run through the scanner and double counted. We ended up with more votes than we had people. Then they did a recount only of the paper ballots. Now, by definition, if your problem is that it's scanning both sides, everybody's vote needs to go down. In the recount, 4 people went down, 5 people went down. Sorry, there were 6 candidates. Steve Jacobs went up. So
Not Steve Jacobs.
Steve.
Steve. Oh, I thought
I
you
said
said
Steve.
Steve
No,
Jacobs.
Steve Jacobs went up, and there is no way in the world that should happen when the problem they identified was with the scanner double counting. So if anything, we should be eliminating paper because that's always been the problem. We saw the problem with paper this year. We have election. We elect our board in the park. We allow electronic voting. People vote. Nobody questions it. I don't know what Reynolds' problem is with electronic voting, but it works. It has worked, and nobody even suggested
Okay,
there was a problem this year.
let me give Pat and Fred a chance to chime in, please.
I'm kind of old fashioned guy. I think the further you get away from same day voting and paper voting, you open yourself up to more and more problems. Call me old fuddy duddy. I like the paper vote.
You're an old fuddy.
And I like because I can see it. And if I have to count it again, I can see it.
But you like it so much you don't want other people to be able to vote electronically?
I would just have, just paper ballot.
Do we, I didn't print it out. Do we have the breakdown of online versus paper? I think we had that in
It was
that spreadsheet,
40-60
40,
approximately.
60. So
Yeah,
there's a
so-
substantial number that
Yes, there was
voted electronically.
yes, I would
And,
call
and,
it.
and I guess I would dispute the comment, not out of intimate knowledge with the process, but I would dispute the comment that the online ballots could not be audited. I mean, I gotta believe he's keeping electronic records and that they can be audited.
Well, they can be audited in the sense that, short of a software failure, once your vote is cast, the machine
Sure.
automatically records it.
And short of a fire,
And we do have a record of each ballot
Mhm.
and who they voted for,
Mhm.
but we don't have any way to match it to people, which is by design. So we could.
right, and even the paper ballots, you shouldn't be able to match those to who voted either,
Yes,
right?
No, you don't.
Yeah.
You
Right.
don't.
no, all we would be able to do is recount the ballots, but I'll be honest, I was initially against online voting the first time it came up. But I've since become a big believer in it. One of the major reasons being that people who voted that way were able to cast their ballot in a matter of less than 30 seconds, 30 to 45 seconds, somebody told me. And assuming that everybody already knows who they're planning to vote for, but when they get ready to do that, and a sizable number of people were able to. And also, if you couple that with the difficulties that residents of OPA are very much disinclined to keep their information up to date with us.
Mhm.
There was a considerable number of ballots. And to address one of Joe's comments via Cheryl, it would actually add more money to us because we don't have scanning equipment now to do that.
Is that because we got rid of what we had?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah, it was outdated technology, so
okay.
it would have to be done. It would have to be repurchased. Now,
I would
cost
like,
comparison, I don't know.
I would like to disagree with one of the things that you said. And one of the things that we ran into problems, because I was chair of the communications committee at the time, was there was a problem with people who own more than one lot. And that continues to be an issue, that they are supposed to get one vote for every piece of property that they own here and are eligible to vote with that piece of property. And that's when the thing blew up with the first
But that
online.
has been.
But that was paper ballots, actually, the problem.
No, no,
Yeah,
no, no, no,
there was a problem with the
no.
paper ballots. I was intimately involved in all that crap. There was a problem with the paper ballots. They'd separate, at that point in time, your ballot, if you had multiple properties, you only got one ballot. For whatever reason, they set up one ballot. And they separated the ballots from the envelopes. They were no longer able to count paper ballots of people who had multiple properties. That was Peck's biggest complaint.
Let's keep names out.
But that was the biggest complaint of the people about the 13 vote margin, was that we were not able to accurately count the people who had multiple lots in paper,
Right.
because they'd been separated. That was a paper ballot problem. But there's the backstory to Reynolds, and he and all 2 or 3 other people are the only ones who seem to have this ongoing battle with electronic voting. The backstory is,
I'm telling you, I'm
Okay,
not in
okay,
favor
well,
of it either.
the
Joe
backstory,
Reynolds, it's me speaking.
well, the backstory is that they believe, there are people out there who believe, because they contacted me as a lawyer, they believe that the people in OPA, in the office here, somebody was given access to Excel spreadsheets and they were changing votes. That was their big attack on electronic voting. Let's get it out in the open if we're going to debate the thing. And they were told,
Perhaps it was that they felt it could be done.
well, they were alleging it was done, and they were told by me, if you believe that's the case, you take it to the state's attorney. They were told by me, if you think that's the case, you raise it. nothing was ever done. Therefore, I believe there's absolutely no proof that ever happened.
Well, I concur that there is no proof, and it was a wild allegation, and frankly, it was defamatory to members of the committee who were running it fair. But we do have to manage perceptions in the community as well. And I don't remember the multiple lot issue. I don't know if it was confined to paper ballots.
It was not.
I don't think it
It was
was.
not. What they
But it
did,
was an issue. But now
they
it,
had
that
this
has been,
weighting factor associated with it, rather than you having an
Yeah, I think they
individual vote per.
overcomplicated the rules for that, and that. would
And last-
apply whether it was
last year-
paper or electronic.
last year when we let the election RFPs out, we specified that that doesn't happen. That every lot gets mailed its own ballot. We do have an opportunity to improve because the envelope said to put all your ballots in, and that caused a small number of people to be disenfranchised. And we need to address that, but
That's on the list that I did attach.
it's on my list too, so good. Glad we have concurrence on something.
I
So,
wonder if we should, maybe this could be discussed at length at a future meeting. Your point's valid. We need to consider it. We have a lot of lessons learned. We're scheduled for an hour, right?
yes, we are.
And there's nothing,
I'm available later if everyone else is.
but there's nothing now inherent in electronic versus paper that affects the multiple properties, because we went to each property one vote. And in fact,
I agree.
they were less likely to be disenfranchised because they couldn't include multiple properties online. So nobody
But-
lost their votes online, but so the multiple property issue isn't there anymore. The whole issue,
Somebody did raise that issue. Because I remember you talked about that. And you rectified it, but that was an issue raised.
I'm not sure I remember what you're referring
I
to.
remember you discussing it. I don't know. if
Well, there was something came up with MK where he had 4 envelopes, each of which had multiple ballots in the same envelope.
Yes,
And the presumption, we don't know because we didn't look at them, but the presumption was it was a multi-property owner that didn't follow the.
yes, and that was entirely possible. And if that's the case, it is our mistake.
So we
And
can
that-
clarify those instructions.
The instructions on the secret return envelope said put all ballots in. It's a simple fix. But it is a lesson learned that we need to fix.
and
But I don't think anybody, I think you're referring to Angie Long. Forgive me dropping names. But Miss Long owns 2 properties in the Pines. And she contacted us on the hotline complaining that she'd gotten her vote for one property but not the other. But that was not a mistake of the vendors or us. Miss Long had failed to update the email on her second ballot. And we sent her 3 different times to the information we have on file before she finally responded in an email. And I looked at the email addresses and well, they're not the same. So hence she never got duplicate ballots because, and she was
I
informed.
remember that.
Lesson learned number 8.
Yeah, well,
but
that, one of
apparently she didn't get a paper ballot for that property either,
the,
I would guess.
right, because again, she's
She
one
got
of
no
the, she's a
ballot for it.
part-timer.
Yep.
So she got the electronic, but the other electronic version was going, and her paper ballot was going to her other residence, I believe.
Is there anybody out there other than Reynolds who's raised this as an issue?
I just did.
No,
Cheryl just
No,
did.
it's in the community, I'm saying in the community.
Yes, there are always a few on the forum who agree with Joe.
Okay, other than the forum, but even the 2 partisan Facebook pages, neither one
Well,
really
no.
attacked electronic.
I don't read those.
But
No,
that, they
but-
represent 90% of the.
No, but the issue, online voting was originally brought up by Amy Peck while she was on the board, and she was a huge advocate for it. And they pushed it through, and we all know the history since then. But this committee is not bound by what anybody else in the community says or does. It's a valid concern we should consider.
Yeah,
Um,
I.
But there's
just
no
raised
evidence of any failure of it in this election.
22 people who responded to this posting of his.
Mhm.
21 of them agreed should not have online voting.
Yes, and I too read those, and those are the same subset, 30 maybe people who
Generally respond.
generally respond and are generally very negative to things that the board is doing.
The same
In
people
my-
don't
in my
want to go on the gnome farm in the South Pond.
Well, how about if
I don't
we,
even, I'm not even on this. I was given to me too.
yes, by someone who feels strongly about it, I'm sure.
No,
Yeah.
it's just someone who has access to the forum that
Oh,
I
okay,
don't.
all right. Well, I would say that my personal position and recommendation is that we continue online voting and that we continue using MK. They were very responsive, very easy to work with, and 40% of our voters used it.
Is
So,
it accurate that they said they could do it here on Prem?
no, not exactly. Forgive me, let me.
You mean the paper counting or the,
What they actually said was that they could come on site and count the ballots here, but that is not included. You referred to, or Mr. Reynolds, somebody referred to $7,000. The committee last year recommended a different vendor, but they did not have a provision of any kind for observable count. Because of our history here and many people, if we don't let them feel and touch the ballots, it seems they won't be satisfied that it was free and fair. So we said, if you don't want to forego the observable count, the second bidder, MK Elections, has a provision for it, but their bid is $7,000 higher. So we did not, quote, pay $7,000 for an observable count. That might be the net effect of it, but it wasn't true. The board decided they wanted an observable count to address concerns, so they were willing to go with the higher bid.
but doesn't that just go to whether they do it here or in
Now,
Pittsburgh?
what Kenny did say is that they do offer that service, but that means they have to bring their scanner here, and it's much more than $7,000 because he has to bring staff. It would be a considerable expense,
Well,
but we
we-
could explore it.
We wouldn't necessarily have to have him bring staff because he just used temps to use it. And we've got a committee here that would serve that purpose, which is zero cost.
I got to be honest with you, Ed, I don't want my numbers being the ones that somebody questions. There's been such animosity in this
Yeah,
community,
this blew up with Brett Hill, our part-time
right?
GM, who,
But
So,
isn't
how about
that just whether they do it there and we watch on video or whether they do it here? Isn't that the difference we're talking?
Well, it's a cost difference.
I'm saying, don't we pay $7,000 to see them live rather than on video? Although
I sat there all day and
people watch on
observed the
video.
count. Looking for, I'll be honest, I didn't stare intently at the screen every second, but it's just a normal process of feeding the ballots in. I was watching
I
for,
watched it too, and for the most part, I was there, I was running in and out, probably like you, but I remember something happened where you could, oh, I forgot those. You grabbed a whole bunch and brought them back. I don't think that's an issue,
Right.
but people could think that's an issue if it was right here on site with a vendor doing it. Then I think maybe some of the people who didn't like the idea of it going away from the way it used to be done for many years, us old timers, would not have a problem if it's right here and it can be observed while it's being done. They can set it up in the gym and do it.
the other side of that is technically the national election is observed and there's rampant discrepancies in votes and tabulations.
The national election is observed.
Sure.
Hmm.
There are poll watchers
Yeah.
from both parties who
Oh,
sit there and
that-
watch everything that gets fed into that machine, just like we did on this. And there's always challenges.
And you're actually gonna have a worse view if you're sitting in the gymnasium or sitting in the auditorium where they're feeding it in.
Right.
Than you are if you're gonna end up watching the video screen in the auditorium.
Yeah.
Because that's the close-up camera.
So,
The only question is whether
in terms of,
if we counted the votes, yes, that's different, but.
because
don't
we
know
have some
everybody
other
has that.
issues I want to discuss, I'd like to bring this to some form of conclusion. So I'll put forth a motion, feel free to amend it if you want, that we continue, just like we did with MK elections, for next year with both an online and a paper ballot, but that the report notes that there are some objections in the community and among the committee to that. So that's my proposed motion. Is there a second for discussion?
May I ask a question before I,
You sure? Certainly
Well,
may.
for a second.
Certainly may.
when do we have to decide on MK?
We don't have to decide on MK until probably March, May, I think is when we finally. But ideally, we can make longer range planning if we don't have to do an RFP and all that. So right now, this motion would simply say we're doing online voting and paper. I can
Yeah,
strike, we
I
can
would-
strike the part about MK if you want.
I would second that motion, because I liked MK. I thought they did a good job, and I was gonna ask if we go sole source. with
Does
them.
anybody, Cheryl, you have anything else you'd like to add to the discussion?
No, I said what I wanted to say.
Since you raised MK, let me say, because it'll be obvious from my notes, despite being critical of some things with them, we created their errors. And so we will fix them this year because they came in, they're used to doing an election where they do the whole thing for for a passive board. We've got to make sure that we have to, as you said in your thing, we have them in on all emails. We have to make sure that they know who's in on calls, whether it's just the board or it's other people. We need them to know what our procedures are. We created the problem.
Right, so we may have to, in one of our subsequent meetings before the next election, we will probably take a glance at MO6 and see if there's, because personally, I feel MO6 is so restrictive of the process that it has to be amended every time you make some kind of change, and that's not the purpose.
Try
in
some
my-
exit for MK.
All right, no one, anyone else? I'll say, all those in favor of the motion to,
So say again about
okay, the motion was to recommend that the board continue online and paper balloting using MK Elections as our vendor. That was, I think I stated that accurately.
Mhm.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
You also have that add-on that we're also going to know if there's some discrepancy. So
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
With
that-
the add-on, aye.
all opposed? One, all right.
That's all right. I don't mind being,
Well, no, it's important
Single.
because you represent the
I think
voice of
I think
part
it
of
was
our
very good
community.
discussion to have, because if there's even 5 people out there that are, don't like it, we need to at least.
practical realities. You
well,
got
it's
40%
two
of the
sitting right
voters.
here.
You know, I believe the paper ballot's the best thing. But you got 40% of your people that want to continue the other thing. Yeah, that's a pretty substantial.
That's 40% of such a small number that actually vote, though.
Yeah.
That it's
40% of
really
the, what is it,
meaningful.
Well, we,
15% of
The
the population.
all-time high percentage despite what one newspaper had predicted.
it's a, it's a,
It means 60% don't want it. It's 40%
Or,
in
Right.
favor of
or
it.
just chose not to.
So
I mean,
and that's why.
I could go either way. I did a paper ballot,
I'm
but
sorry?
I do too.
only because it was,
if a paper ballot were all that's available, I would still continue to vote,
Yeah.
but I much prefer being able to, because I live on my computer and it's easy, and I know for a good portion of the Ocean Pines membership, they may not be anywhere near that computer literate, which is why we continue to offer
I
the
would
other.
say I'm one of them.
Okay,
But
well,
the
that's-
60%.
I meant nothing disparaging by that, just an observation.
No, and I have a new laptop that's got all kinds of problems because it's not like my old one, and so now I'm like trying to figure out even that, so.
I mean, you didn't use paper,
Right.
but you object, but
you want
even
to
though you
continue
use
with
paper, you
lessons
object
learned?
other
Yes.
people's things.
All right, let's come back. I'm just gonna
I
run
just
through.
think that the electronic poses more potential problems.
Actually, I would contend it's the other way around. But different, that's over a beer after the meeting. So the lessons learned, I'll start with my list and then we'll look at Ken's and anybody else who has their notes. We had the initial problem that the electronic email of the election materials was sent out after the paper ballots, or arrived after is a better way to say it. So I'm assuming that this year we will recommend that we let the paper ballots have a 1 to 2 days head start, and then the electronic be sent out, and that we include that in the notice. I do want to note that one of the candidates, in a phone call with me, challenged or accused, I'm not sure what the right term is, but that we were not following MO6 because we sent out 2 ballot packages. And I responded simply that, no, my interpretation of MO6 is not the same as yours, but we did not. We sent 1 package with 2 elements. And because of the U.S. Postal Service, they differed in time delivered. So I don't think that needs any further addressing. And again, I noted the concern.
So the timing created confusion.
Well, I can't even remember.
I could tell you
Did my
exactly
paper
what
ballot come in was there only 1 package sent?
there,
was?
yes.
I can't even remember.
Again, that was the candidate who complained, their contention that we sent 2, an electronic and a paper. It was 1 package with 2 different voting options.
Right.
Okay.
When
well,
Kenny asked, I said, send them both at the same time. Error on my part. That we should have said, we will mail the paper ballot and then wait 2 days and send the electronic, so that, because the paper actually had the printed materials with the candidate bios and question answers.
Which we ended up catching up with that on
We
the,
caught it, so
Email.
it was fixed in a matter of
Yeah.
45
And
minutes,
it wasn't an error.
but,
But I only got 1 package and it told me what my options were. Take the paper ballot that's been sent to you and deal with it either mail or the box, or use the electronic option. But that was all in 1 package, right? We didn't get 2
That
different
Oh, but you got an
packages.
email.
there was a package that arranged, that
Yeah.
arrived in your
so
snail mail.
if you
And then there was an
emailed them to your
email
husband,
that
he
gave
got
you-
it and didn't tell you.
No, I don't have a husband, first of all,
Oh,
but,
forgive me. I apologize.
but it's only 1 package that came to me as a property owner.
Yeah.
And then
Yes.
it was up to me to decide how I wanted to vote.
Well, if you have an email on file, you.
But I
you would
do,
have
I
also-
guess I got that as well. Oh, I see.
So yes, because we're trying to encourage voting, give people options and get it out there.
But if it's in the package that comes to you.
Yes, but what comes to you, the unique identifier is this very long alphanumeric, and it would just be rife with people mistyping their login or their information. So the electronic version included a clickable link. You just
Yeah.
click on the link and it takes you right to the ballot.
And was not included in the written
No, it can't
material?
be. It can't be because it's so long a number.
That link,
You can't click on something on paper. That was the advantage of the electronic.
But her problem was.
You would have had to
paper
type it in,
I see.
and it's very lengthy.
Well, see, I'm allowing you to see how
and-
poor my knowledge is.
I'm certain you are not the only one in the community who might have
Right,
those same
right.
questions.
Right.
And the only ad I had to yours, because it's easier to do your, the only ad I had to yours was that we put it in MO6 or wherever. It is still a single mailing, even though we send an email. Yeah, we send the email a day later. And of course, we include the bios in the email. So
Yeah.
as we did eventually.
Yes. So all those good things and let's see. So
So as a result of that, should the lag time be longer between the mail piece
you know,
and the email?
Cheryl, I can never guesstimate how long the U.S. Postal Service is going to do, and it's going to be different if you're getting your mail here in OP or if you're getting it in Fredericksburg, Virginia, or wherever. As Tom Piatti used to lecture me, any mail you send from here to another OPA address goes from here to a substation to where is it? I think it's Northern Virginia, the mail sorting facility, and then back. So we could never actually predict.
It's a federal system.
And the only issue, there was no issue. It's just that there are certain people who are hyper in tune with things and looking for something, in my opinion, to be wrong. They found something, so they raise it. They go on their social media or the forum and start squawking that something untoward is happening, when in fact it was not.
So I think your note
you're-
about sending after makes sense. We can figure out whether it's 2 days or
Yeah.
4 days or a week.
And we'll
or
just
whatever.
include, as Ken suggested, we'll include that, say
Yeah.
the paper ballot will be mailed first,
Yeah.
but it will arrive when the postal service delivers it. The electronic will
You had a
arrive.
long period of time to vote.
Yeah.
It was
Yes.
like, it seemed
Nobody-
like 6 weeks, wasn't it, or something
Right.
like that? It was,
This was just
Just seemed
people
like a-
who, as soon as they got something
Yeah.
and it wasn't exactly
Right.
what they thought it should
Mhm.
be, they started reaching out to anybody who they thought,
But
do
we
something.
need to be cognizant of that and probably build in a longer gap between the two.
We
So
do.
Hopefully.
we do. And I called the candidate who was upset and talked her through it and explained what it was. Explained to her that my interpretation of ML6 and what is one packet to each address is not the same as what she was making it sound like. And we just agreed to disagree. Okay, so, but there is a group out there that attempts to use our resolutions and our governing documents, not to keep us in compliance, but to control the process.
Gotcha.
Right, and play a
Yeah.
gotcha. All right, we talked about the candidate photos and bios that weren't initially included with the electronic. We did have some questions that came up about the Dropbox. And we've had a Dropbox at the police station every year for our elections for as long as I've been active down here.
That's what I always.
But
use.
apparently, because we didn't write it on the envelope somewhere, I got a handful of questions. And
Well, I think there was late information coming out also about it.
there was, it was there in the police station, but we just hadn't put anything out expressly. So again,
Just need to be included.
yes, ma'am, I agree. I've got a note here about clarifying packaging requirements for dropped off ballots. I don't think we had any ballots that were outside the secret envelope or,
Tom Schwartz called naked ballots.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Unless,
but
unless any of those ones that people, put 2 or 3 ballots in within that
it's always,
dropped off and we don't know that.
Well, we had that issue of people who apparently had a concern that their vote was not really anonymous.
yes,
That's
yes,
a
we did
different
have that.
And does that get into this issue that?
That is addressed by this issue. If they
Yes.
package, if they receive, well, you know what you received, that you got a package of information and it was the ballot, the paper ballot, and a return postage paid mailer. And there was a second envelope, I believe, that was that covered the secret.
Secret ballot.
Right. So you put your ballot in the
Envelope.
secret envelope and then put the envelope in the other, and those are counted.
But I think you might be referring to the concern about the
altered ballots.
the barcodes.
Yes, yes, there were some people, and I'm sorry, but forgive me, I don't mean to sound hurt or crass, but I'm not responsible for everybody's paranoia.
And I actually came up and made a suggestion of mine that we say right on there, this only identifies the election. And if you alter this ballot in any way, it will not be counted.
Right. Well, we do have to put that in our
Yeah, well-
communications that go out. But will somebody still think it is? Probably. If they cut off the barcode though, that's an adulterated ballot to me and that doesn't get counted. So, do it the right way. We tell you what the right way is. And if you're too paranoid to vote because you think we can tell, we've gone to great pains to make sure that
Yeah.
I can't tell.
Well, we could get DNA off of them.
Yeah, maybe so, but I'm not paying for that.
I just reminded of a great Martin Luther King saying, "He who seeks grievances
We'll
will
find
find
out.
them."
Yep.
Yes. I've got another note here to remove MK Elections contact info from the ballots. There was a phone number. It says if you have problems, contact MK. I don't want anybody doing that. I want them contacting us.
Okay.
So
I didn't
that's what that is.
read the ballot carefully. I was focused on
Yeah.
my business.
Number 6 I've got here is better clarity of voting information, the Dropbox location and deadline. Only one vote, one way, ways to contact the elections committee, etc. I think we do a pretty good job of that, but people don't save it and then they start doing it.
I
But we
thought it
will.
was interesting that the last instruction on the ballot was vote for no more than 2. And we had ballots that voted for more than 2.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
some voted for 4.
yeah, so.
Or anybody but.
But you can, I mean,
But then again, vote for 2 could mean somebody thought they could put 2 ballots in. That
But
might
think of
be
it
another
another
possible
somebody that went to the
explanation.
trouble of saying anybody.
But I don't know where they'd get a
To do
second
that.
ballot unless
Just
it
don't vote
came
if you
in their
feel
package, so.
That's-
All right. I've got a note here, coordinate deadlines with MK for the deadline for online voting. It was a transition and no impact thing, but apparently what was in the MK election said, in their contract said that the online voting would stay open till midnight on that Friday.
Hmm.
So I told Kenny, he said he couldn't close it per the contract. I said, fine, leave it open. We will accept any ballot that comes in that window because it was duly cast, but we're going to pull the paper ballots at the appointed time. So we won't accept paper that comes in late. So if he received a paper ballot in the mail after 4 p.m. on that Friday, didn't count. I don't think that happened. But, and the same thing for, the only exception was the online because we had a contract. We were going to accept those. And next year,
And do you know from the report, did people still vote?
No. there were no late votes cast. So, and that's kind of the
Yeah,
dice I
either
roll
way,
in either way.
paper or electronic?
Correct.
Oh, that's a first.
I had some people who contacted me Friday morning saying, but I didn't get my ballot, when does voting close? And I said yesterday. But because this was after the fact, I still got one more email about where's my ballot. It's like, you just really haven't been paying attention.
Would you like the results?
Yeah. So that's that. My 8 is the big one that I'd like us to take offline at a subsequent meeting, and that is that I feel we desperately need a campaign to get voters to update OPA records before the election. I would be more than happy to, and I'm sure Ken would be more than happy to go on the OPA podcast sometime May or June and say, if you want to receive ballots.
Can I suggest the communications committee to do that?
I was gonna say
Sure,
that.
that's even better.
isn't- I don't think that's it's our responsibility to recognize an issue and bring it to the right people, but
Okay.
I don't think it's our job to
Yeah,
get people
I'd like
to
recommend the communications committee to
and
do that.
collaborate.
Are
with
you on the
guys.
communications committee or you were before?
I was the chair before, but
Okay.
Linda Yerkes is the current chair, and they've been looking
Yeah.
for ways to try to get the word out about all kinds of things. I think that's a perfect thing
Yeah.
for them to take on.
I mean, I'd be happy to, brainstorm with them and stuff, but.
Yeah, we'd be happy to, I will offer that
Yeah.
members of our community would be happy to come talk
But I
to them about
but I
what
think
the message needs to be.
But I think the campaign,
With them chairing the
Yeah.
thing
the
and
campaign should be theirs. It's or the board or somebody. It's not that it shouldn't come from the election committee officially, I think.
Okay. Now this one is a change, number 9. I propose that we move the cutoff for the Dropbox to
Yeah.
1 week before.
That was
Absolutely.
way too tight.
Because it was monstrous. By the time we got them, well, you were there, we
I
got them
was-
packed up, and then
I was wondering.
Fred
how the
drove
heck-
me up to Staples, and Staples said you'd missed the last cutoff.
they said that?
Yeah,
Oh,
even though their website said I had another
Yeah, the
40
truck was
minutes.
there, so we weren't gonna let the truck move.
Yeah, so we
Did you lay down in front of it?
No,
he was willing
It's
to,
threatened violence.
but no, they
I
took
mean, that was just.
They- no,
they took the package and it worked, so we didn't have any.
We dropped it off right at 5, and at 10 a.m. the next day it was over.
Yeah.
Again, I think you had enough time from when we started to when we ended that, I mean, if people can't vote in a month,
Right.
then they're
So
probably.
then the
not gonna vote.
question becomes, should we move the entire vote
So-
deadline?
so
Because
that
I'm a
was-
little leery of having a cutoff for the Dropbox and a different time for the
It would
online.
kill us to have a week between the cutoff and then having to come out with the results.
I added on to yours.
Please.
To put the electronic stop at the same time.
All right.
Stop all voting a week before let's talk the timeline. We have the annual meeting,
Mhm.
right? And then 2 days before that, we counted. And I guess we did that because we were supposed to announce
Right.
2 days in advance. And I don't know, that might be something to discuss too. But,
And
Is
those
it-
are things that may require the MO6 to be.
and that's fine. I figured there's something that's governing that. So to me, if you were to cut it off, give MK a week to get everything counted and ready for us to attest.
Right.
And then if you still have that 2 day,
We can have the observable count.
Yeah.
That Friday, well, so the annual meeting's always a Saturday, so not the Friday immediately before, but 1 week back.
Yeah.
That can be the cutoff.
Mhm.
Or we can even cut it off. Yeah.
well, I
anyway.
would suggest,
And then Monday,
that
we
you-
can do the observable
I think
count.
it's
Well, it
clean
would
to
be-
cut them all off at the same
Well,
time.
again, think about what you just said, though. You're gonna cut off the ballot, the drop box a week before you're gonna finalize the count. You don't wanna stop the drop box and then the next day do the count, the
No,
observable count.
we will work with Kenny to make sure
Figure
that,
out the right time.
that the mail cutoff, electronic cutoff, and the Dropbox cutoff are all the same. But we're going to allow ourselves 2 to 3, maybe 4 days
Mhm.
to get the ballots, the paper
Yeah.
ballots that we have here packaged up and
Yep.
to him without having to worry about whether or not FedEx is gonna pick up at 5 o'clock or 6.
There's a lot less votes, but my condo ballots are due like 14 days before they're announced. So I don't think a week is unreasonable.
And I would propose that we
Yeah.
do look at MO6 and change the announcement to be at the annual meeting rather than, nobody needs it before it can be validated. They're not official.
So I
Well,
thought about that
too.
That's another part of the history here of Ocean Pines. It used to be that you did not know the results of the voting until the annual meeting, because you were using that to get people to show up for the annual meeting.
That was gonna be my question.
That was why we did it that way in the past.
And-
And again,
And-
Red Hill and his BS changed all of that.
We all have different BS people. Have you noticed that?
I think divulging it in
He was
advance
community-wide.
hurt us to get our.
Yes. So
Yes.
when we will take a look at MO6 and make recommendations to the board.
And
to
if we gave
change
them
that.
hot dogs and pizza, that would bring them in too. I heard it used to be a big big party or whatever. They
Well,
bring people there.
There's really no harm. It literally, the
Not
special
really.
meet,
What brought him in was that's.
Wanting
when
to
you
know who
knew
won.
Who won.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
we're
So-
gonna.
I agree with you.
Let's just not
Is
vote
that
on
another
that.
MO6 thing? that we have to- Okay.
I think so. So we'll make that the subject of a special meeting we have or a regularly scheduled one. I noted that the final UPS drop off at Staples is 4 PM, not 5 PM like their website says. And I want us to take a much more careful look at the materials that NK sends to us for approval and to make sure that we and they are clear on all deadlines and reminders. And
So did they send out communications?
Yeah,
They
they
sent
sent
out-
out that
Do
email
we want them to?
that gave the wrong date.
I authorized it because reminding people to vote seemed like a good thing to do if we're encouraging voter, but it turned out to be problematic.
Because they put the wrong date.
Seems like we should control that better. Maybe we,
Well, then perhaps what we should do is, again, partner more with the communications committee
Yeah.
and say, we want all communications about the election to come
And
out
who's
through
the
you.
guy that put out the press releases and stuff? Is that
Josh.
Josh, is he part of that committee?
No, Josh is
He's
OPA
an
staff.
employee?
Yes.
Okay.
And whatever,
So maybe it is another collaboration. with the
whatever he did
communications
was at my
committee.
behest. So
Sure.
I directed, well, I didn't really direct him, but I asked him to do
But
it.
you didn't know that they had the wrong date until after it went out to people, and I caught it right away, and I
Which
said,
is-
oh my God.
Which is why I think we, as much as I like how they operate and they were very effective, we should not put direct communications with the community on them. I think.
Okay,
I think we should retain all control. Whether it's, we do it in collaboration with the communications committee, or we work directly with Josh and he puts the right message together.
Yeah.
I think
All
we
right.
need to own that.
I'm going to take a look at Ken's notes here.
Yeah, I think if any of them make sense for your report, Steve, use them. If not, we'll discuss them at a future meeting. because
Yeah.
I failed to attach them and I've taken up most of this.
I think most of these we have.
A lot of it's just detail. It's okay, this,
Yeah.
here I am, the lawyer, trying to keep
It,
it from
it will inform my
getting
report.
litigated.
I
Yes.
jotted a few down.
All right, Pat. Absolutely.
And I think we talked about some of this stuff. If, I think we agree, if they alter the ballots, they're gonna get thrown away.
Mhm.
As much as, I mean, it wasn't a huge deal for us to go through, what was it, 40 or 50 in real time, but it's something that it is 15 minutes we'll never get back in our lives. So I think we got to get that message clear. And so then the question is, well, and then I guess it's a two-part point. If the machine rejects the ballots, they also get thrown away. So the question is, do we put the decision in MK's court to decide that they were altered or that the machine rejected them, legitimately rejected them?
I would submit that
Do we
any
need-
decision not to count a ballot should be ours.
Okay, fine.
But the machine will reject some valid votes that are where somebody doesn't color in the circle, they just put a slash through it.
And we'll
It's
still have
obvious
to
what they want.
adjudicate those.
I would be okay with saying, Kenny, the obvious ones where it's obvious what they meant, just count them. Don't make us sit here and go through 50 ballots but I'm just one vote on the committee.
I even suggested if if they think they made a mistake, give them a ballot.
Right.
Or vote electronically.
Well, anybody who,
But if you mess up your paper,
That does-
go on the line.
let me finish up with what Pat might have here.
Again, explain the barcode on the ballot, that it's not us tracking them. Something that I think we ran into because of maybe the stress or the frenzy as we got to the end, we were seemed to be waffling on what message we wanted to send out to people or decisions to forego certain things. And my only point is, if we put out a plan, we put out a communication, we're going to do this. We just have to stick to our guns.
And the difference is probably we weren't working our plan, we were working Tom's.
Right.
And fair enough, but
It's a
you
good
know,
point.
there were certain cases once I got engaged where I saw some messages go out and then we started to want to deviate a little bit from those messages. I think it's all about follow through and optics with the community here.
Okay.
Let's see. And similarly, I guess anything, because we're human and fallible, anything we send out, we ought to run it by the team. And I think you did that for a couple of those things where we were sort of trying to fix
I
things.
tried to,
So I think it's a good practice.
does everybody have access to the elections email box now? Or,
I haven't
do.
successfully done that.
so then I should continue putting your individual
Yeah.
emails in there. Okay, that's
But
what,
I'm
that was my
gonna
big.
come to that in a minute. So you already are advocating to hold off announcing the results until the annual meeting.
Right.
I wrote that down. Index cards at the annual meeting. We never use them for anything.
It only made sense if we were handing them out in the hall when they were using them for entry.
I can tell you that the check-in process to determine a quorum has always been a difficulty / nightmare. I thought it worked better with the computer being able to search it, but I was just backstopping Cheryl when she couldn't find it on paper right away.
Yeah, I thought it would.
But how we,
Except here's the real problem. People did not understand what we were looking for to begin with.
Right.
In addition to your ID, we know who you are. It's not your license, it's your Ocean Pines member number
Right.
that we were looking for.
Except
you
there was a
could-
problem with that too.
Well, that's what I'm saying. People didn't understand that. They didn't even know. And if you have two members in one property, but only one is entitled to vote, we only are looking for the member number of the person who's associated with the property. So that was an issue also.
well, that would require clarification because
Oh, that's what I'm saying. We're talking about clarification
if
here.
the property is in the wife's name, but she's not coming and the husband shows up wanting to vote, can he vote if his name is not the one on the list? Or,
Technically, no. Technically, no.
Well, you have to remember though, when we were checking them in on the computer, we were checking either by their OPA ID number, their address,
But they
or,
wouldn't show up unless they were entitled to vote.
no, the address would show up.
Yeah, that's the distinction. The property is what is allowed to vote, not the person.
Right.
What was the
So-
third thing we checked on?
Wasn't-
So if my wife and I, we own our house here together. If I don't go to the meeting, but she goes, she can vote. Actually,
Their name?
probably the other way around because I'm the,
ID number,
I'm the
name, and
newbie.
address.
but yeah, we should either one be able to cast the vote for our property if either one of us
So
should.
it wasn't.
If your name's on the deed,
It
if
was.
both
keep
names
it-
are on the
keep
deed,
in-
but if
keep in-
one's not,
Keep in
no.
mind, this was not for
You're right,
voting.
Cheryl.
This
That-
is for
that is true.
quorum. This was
Yeah,
to
this
establish
was-
a quorum.
Yeah, what's on the deed may not be the exact same thing that's in Ocean Pines record. So that would be a further thing we'd have to tell everyone. If you're both on the deed, you both have to be on the list, and boy, that will make some people angry.
Have we ever had a vote at the, I guess we have had votes at the
Yeah,
annual
we
meeting,
have.
but
Well, if we go back to announcing the elections, as Cheryl said, we might.
Okay, so maybe
And that's what.
another opportunity for
So
improvement
it
is
is for
the
a
check-in
multiple
process to
property
determine
owner.
a quorum,
You have
because
a
it was,
card for every
it
one of
was-
the properties. that
was
you could
good, but
use
not
to
great.
vote if
Yep.
we were voting
It was
on
better,
something.
but not great. Yeah, you're right. I would.
you already talked about going sole source. So, I know you were the only member who survived the purge, so, and I appreciate you taking on some of those duties
Well, thank you.
yourself, but we were certainly willing to help. Just a little bit of training on how to use the elections committee email, how to use the voicemail box,
Okay.
and any other things where we're using technology or process
yeah,
that we might not be very familiar with.
Well, as
So
I-
that's-
as
it's
you'll
not all on
recall,
you.
It took quite a while to get the exact way to get that voice, to access that voicemail,
Yeah.
because Tom gave us the wrong information to begin with.
And I
But-
think I've
think
written
we-
new instructions for
Okay,
that.
because
Um,
I've got it
I've-
now.
my-
finally.
Just by way of sharing my avocation, what I get paid to do is training development.
Oh,
So,
there you go.
so I will,
All right,
I don't know if you're done with your list, but
The
I've
only,
got,
the last thing I had was really more of a question about, and maybe it's in MO6, is we open up witnessing of the count to anybody who's interested. We
we did that.
yeah, we did that. Are they obligated to see our attestation process of those as well?
I think they did.
They
say
did.
it.
They did.
I know they did.
It wasn't.
I know they did, but I read something that said we would do the witnessing and then cut off that meeting and then we start a new meeting.
That was the original plan, but I think at John's request, he said that we should let everybody watch that.
No, we did that because the guy, he put up the results at the beginning of our meeting. And that because I have it in my things there, because the link for our attestation meeting was not made public. It was just sent to us. The email went out with the link to our deliberation, whatever we called it.
No,
Our
that's
adjudication.
not true.
Yeah, it is.
The reason I know it's not true is because somebody on one of the social medias commented about you getting all excited and get it off the screen, get it off the screen. So if they, and it wasn't a member of the committee.
No,
so-
that was the public commit, that was the public meeting, was the,
They
Our-
put the number
our
on.
adjudication thing.
But it wasn't supposed to be.
No, that part was supposed to be public, but our final, because there weren't supposed to be any vote totals in that.
I
All right, let's-
understand.
Let's,
I understand, but we were starting the attestation meeting and he inadvertently brought up a
right,
screen he didn't intend
No,
to
he
bring
brought
up.
that up at the beginning of the adjudication meeting before we even
Okay.
adjudicated those.
that's all
That's what
history.
it's- that's what it's-
That's all history. Let's all
I guess
address
I-
that.
But yeah, I agree with you, the second one where we validate is not,
Let's address that when we look at MO6
Mhm.
and associated things, because it has been noted and I want to. So I just made a note here that I'd like to hold future meetings on one meeting each on these topics, MO6 and any revisions we propose. A communications plan, which I'd like to have a joint meeting, with the communications committee, if we can arrange that. a separate meeting on the check-in process, and a fourth one on training for the committee. And we can all bring our laptops in and we'll get them set up just
Should we do
right.
That one first.
Probably, probably. This does not imply order. You're right. Everyone okay with those topics?
And I think I think there might be one on ballot design. But some of the comments as to what information we give out might not actually be in any of
Yeah,
those.
I like I said, I've got boxes of ballots and envelopes, so we will pull one sample out and have it here for us to look at and say, okay, what's wrong with this? What do we need to fix? So
Okay.
I'll add that as another topic. I do have on the agenda today to review CO8. That's in your packet. And essentially, this is just
For what it's worth, I looked at it and I don't have any recommendations to change it.
yeah, I looked at it too, and I was fine with everything it says.
Yeah, I'm cool with it.
I just have one, because I have to have questions.
Yes,
See,
No, you don't.
no, it's 6C. Do you really get the authorized in writing for every time you communicate? I thought 6C was a little bit restrictive.
6C.
Hopefully the board of ethics tells you you can communicate on anything. It almost sounds like you have to go back to them before you make any communication.
No, 6C is talking to the media.
Yes. But I know you talk to the media. Do you get approval before you talk?
No, I actually don't. I referred them to John.
Okay.
I ignored one request. The only media person I talked to was Tom Stouts after the fact, and it was clarifying the number of ballots and the final numbers, which are all public record in our report. But no, other than during the election, I would just take the request and send it saying, if I talk to them, if they got me on the phone, it was, I'm really not authorized. Please speak to John. He's our liaison. I don't speak for the board. If he authorizes it, I'll be more than happy to talk to you. But
Which reminds me, sometimes they change liaisons. I forget. Do we stick with is John still our liaison?
It's
Or did-
likely we'll get a new one because I think.
Yes,
Andy-
yes, I'm still here. We're just as an update to that, Cheryl, we just had an organization meeting. We set dates for the upcoming election. We are in the process, probably in the next couple of weeks. We'll determine if there will be any changes for liaison. So just stay tuned on that. I don't know if there'll be any changes
do
or
we
not.
get a right of first refusal?
Hey, look, I said, look, I'm just trying to, you don't want to move me off. I said, I just finally got a little bit under my belt. I feel like I almost know what's going on.
And I told Brenda, my wife, I said, I just got Latham trained.
Yes, you
You
did.
want to have to train somebody else.
Yeah, I'll go on the record as saying I'm fine with you continuing as our liaison. But your call, of course.
You might want to make that request
Uh,
to the board
yeah,
because
You-
they generally do mix them up.
yeah. So for continuity of the election and getting a process that really becomes repeatable every year and working out the kinks, I would recommend that the same liaison stay with us through the next election and perhaps someone after that, but we'll see about that when we.
And I did ask to keep that, to stay with that. And I'm not running next year, so I'm valid. The year after that, I would be running again, and I would not be able to be there in
It's okay.
in an election
I
year.
know the new president. I'll put a bug in his ear offline,
Okay.
but we'll make it an official request too. All right.
So now you have to report back to the bylaws that we're cool with COA the
Yes,
way it is,
yeah.
right?
I've got to get back to that. In fact, I had responded to, there was just too much going on in the election to do it when she first sent it out. So I told her we were going to do it afterwards and we just did it. So I will see what I need to sign and send in.
And then another action, you're gonna send us MK's report.
I think I
I don't know
wrote
if
it
you
down.
wrote that down or not.
And unlike me, he's going to attach it to the email.
Well, yeah, maybe.
It helps.
And then Steve, I owe you an answer on where those boxes need to go, right?
But that's a good
Right.
point, though, of what's put on.
Okay.
Yes.
I had a couple.
All right,
comments.
although I will try to duck in and see Linda if she's still here. She may be gone.
Well,
You're
yeah,
right.
shoot me
I
a
just
note
have
if you.
calls,
one
right?
question.
Answer from
If I don't have the
We
history
had
with a lot of you guys.
MK's note on the, but.
I still don't understand
He
why
didn't
we
know
do
it was
this
enough.
every
It
year.
was just- wasn't just a committee.
Elections?
I mean, the bylaw says we gotta do a portion of the board every year. And I understand there must be some logic to that as opposed to electing them all at the same time or doing half and half.
The logic, I think,
Like
is
it's costly and.
Continuity.
the likelihood is continuity, so that you never turn over the entire board and then everybody has to get up to speed. And so you're kind of dead in the water for 3 months.
Yeah.
This way, we only, it's just like the house.
Size. I just,
It's better this way too.
It's just like a lot of city councils are. I realize maybe not in Ocean City, but a lot of places, your local council.
It's just like the
same thing.
Senate. A third of it turns over every year.
How my choral group in Bowie did it.
I want to get information about your call group. I saw you're posting on Facebook and I thought, well, heck, if I'm going to be down that way, I should drop in. Unless it was a private event.
Oh, no, it wasn't private.
And don't forget, he does training. I do comedy October 4th. Don't go to the Friday of the country calling. Go to the comedy show, the country calling on Saturday.
All right.
We may have already determined, so I don't know.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second?
Yeah.
All in favor? Aye.
that's a-
Opposed?
Thank you.
Meeting
We will
adjourned.
be,
Thanks, John.